Hello and welcome to another episode of the BashTalk podcast. It's been a while, as I always say. I kind of do this intermittently. I kind of make my mind up that I'm going to do an episode and maybe not, but we should be back for a new season now. And I just want to kick off with someone who's quite well known in the community and someone who I consider someone quite reputable to talk about this particular topic. It's Mr. Idnan himself. And Idnan, if I'd like you to just introduce yourself and maybe even expand on some of your background.
Yeah, so for those who don't know me, my name's Idnan. I'm born in Burnley, grew up in Nelson, in the Bradley ward, and I work in finance. And the Palestinian cause is a cause which is very close to my heart. It's a cause I'm very, very passionate about, and I'm honoured to be here, Bash. And welcome back to you too.
Yeah, it's been a while. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set some context. Okay. So we don't need to sell, which side to support in this particular conflict because we know who our audience is and we know who's right. So in terms of context, what I will say then is a lot of the focus of this conversation today is going to be around the kind of political response, how people, especially those of influence or any people in political parties, handled it. So if you go back to 7th of October, everything kicks off. Within a day to 2 days, leaders around the world are kind of saying where they stand and saying basically, I support this side or I support that side or this is what we believe, etc., etc. Now, for us in particular, the main two parties that have any influence in this country are Labour and the Tories. Now, Rishi Sunak, right from the get-go, said to Israel, you have our support, and so forth. So he's basically made his point right from the get-go. And then Starmer, the leader of Labour at the moment, he was asked in an interview, I think it might have been on LBC.
It was LBC, yeah.
And they very, very clearly asked him, because at this point the Israeli defense minister had said that we are going to basically starve them of food. We are basically describing a load of conditions that would, under any other normal circumstances, be described as war crimes or against any kind of international law. And he was very specifically asked, what do you think? And he's like, Israel has that right. So he's made it very clear where he stands. Basically, both the Labour leader, Tory leader have both said they're on side. And despite blatantly being told that, you could be implicit in war crimes here, or you could be at risk of obviously going against international law, they've kind of stood their ground with that, at least for a set period of time. And those are the leaders of the parties. And obviously we've got many, many, many people in our local community who are members of those parties. And I just want to know what are your thoughts on that.
Okay, so as far as the political parties are concerned, at this moment in time, we've got Keir Starmer leading the Labour Party and Rishi Sunak, the unelected Indian, leading the Conservative Party. And I personally see them as two cheeks of the same ass. I personally believe, traditionally our community has seen Labour as the softer approach, the easy way into politics, pro-immigration, etc. But with what Keir Starmer stated on LBC, where he said, there will be, Israel has the right to withhold fuel, electricity and water. Mm-hmm. Now that is in itself a recipe for genocide. And when he stated that, for me, that was the end. I mean, he is an ex-human rights lawyer. Yep. He should have known better. And he stuck to his guns and it was exceedingly disappointing.
So I guess what you're saying is almost, with the Tories we expect it.
Of course.
But with the Labour, we expected better.
We expected better, but like I said, at the moment I see them as the same.
Yeah. Well, it effectively proved the point, didn't it? As soon as they both started singing from the same hymn sheet, you knew where they stood. So then that leads into the point that then at a local level, so communities up and down the UK, not just Muslim communities, but just communities in general. Yeah. People have then obviously become quite upset, especially more so within the Labour supporters and communities, because again, there's an expectation that you think, okay, the guy who's leading the party, he was in charge of CPS, he's got wealth of experience with law, international law, and he's clearly, saying something that's blatantly wrong here. What do you think of the response of our local? I mean, there's local and obviously the wider borough as well. Have you got any thoughts on how it was handled?
Locally, I think I'm aware of a couple of brothers who stood down, who resigned from their positions, and I hold them in high regard. It takes a lot of effort goes into the work to be elected for a particular political party, and their conscience, their understanding, and their basically, passion for the Palestinian cause and humanity in general made them step down. I believe personally, and a lot of the sentiment of the community is that them stepping down was the right decision.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, there were also councillors who decided to stick within their parties, not resign, and continue to be a part of a political party which condones genocide, in effect.
And when faced with that kind of decision, so I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and say I'm going to try and look at it a different way, because it wouldn't be fair if we both just jump on and start attacking. But let's say you got somebody who truly believes that they can make change from within. So that's someone that says, right, look, I believe that my presence in the Labour Party would provide me influence, and I'll be able to long-term work my way up and help him change policy, shape policy, as my voters or constituents would demand me to. What do you think of that argument?
That myth argument. I think a good example to use in that here would be Jeremy Corbyn. So in the last election, I was campaigning actually for Labour because I was a fan of Jeremy Corbyn in the sense that he's a principled man. He had good principles, and of course he was with the oppressed, and he stood firmly for the cause of the Palestinians. And I think it was Al Jazeera who exposed the Labour leaks, the Labour files.
Yes.
And if you look into that further, you can this myth that you can make a change from within will be clearly debunked, because he wasn't a councillor, Jeremy Corbyn. He wasn't a member of parliament. He was in fact the leader of the Labour Party at the time, and he couldn't make a difference. In fact, he at this moment in time sat as an independent. This moment in time. So I mean, if he couldn't do it, I see no logic behind that argument whatsoever. There's no basis for it. And I think it would be interesting to have, if you do know of any councillors who feel that this is an argument which holds any sort of relevance, to invite them onto the podcast and have a discussion together.
I mean, I'd be open to have anybody on that wants to discuss that point, because it's not so much like me personally. Obviously, I have to be objective, but even like with my objective hat on, I'm like, I think it's more of a case of they're giving you access, they're not giving you influence. They're letting you sit at the table, but you got to keep your mouth shut, because you're gonna have to correct me on this, but wasn't there at one point a Commons vote that was proposed, and then it did go in regarding getting everybody to say agree to a ceasefire, but the Labour guys were told that if they were to vote for a ceasefire, that their actual seat was under threat. I could be wrong.
They would remove the whip. Yeah. So I think it was 57, was it, who basically voted in favour of a ceasefire. I think Jess Phillips, she left her position from the front bench. However, overall, the vote failed. Obviously, there was no ceasefire, and very unfortunate, disgusted, disappointed. And since then, has there been a change, Bash? Have you seen? Has there been a shift in anything? I mean, these images coming out of Gaza, harrowing, heartbreaking, soul-shattering, and there's been no difference whatsoever. And the truth is, local councillors cannot make a difference. especially when it comes to the Palestine-Israel conflict. You know, this is Palestine has been illegally occupied for 75 years.
Yeah.
You know, we've been through Operation Cast Lead, Protective Edge, Pillar of Defense, as normal Finkelstein refers to as Israel goes in to mow the lawn.
Mow the lawn,
no,
yeah.
And it's vile, it's barbaric, and the world knows it. The truth is the world knows it. And this didn't begin on October the 7th. What was the situation on October the 6th? You know, what was the situation? The Palestinians, yeah, from the first Nakba. I mean, I would ask you know, people, the audience, to look into the history of this particular conflict, to you know, to better their understanding. And as far as what we can do, yes, you know, we can boycott certain products, we can make dua, which is very powerful. But as far as local politics is concerned, Keir Starmer, he made his position very clear. He said Israel has the right to stop electricity, water, food.
Yep.
There's children who are starving in Gaza. And this man, this ex-human rights lawyer, is suggesting that Israel has that right. Now, he's the leader. He draws the party line. And councillors, whether, you know, they may say, you know, we can only make a local difference. They still are Labour councillors, right?
Yeah.
So they represent the party.
Yeah.
So they are, in my opinion, implicit, complicit, say what you want. You know, I believe they are part of the same party. So it goes without saying, I would have expected them to resign, just as some other brothers did. And in fact, Bash, in Burnley, there was a number of Labour councillors, I believe 11, who resigned from their positions, did the right thing.
Yep.
And nobody has asked any councillors, like, personally, I don't have any affiliation with any political party, so Conservatives, Labour, it doesn't, for me, you know, it's not nothing personal, and I have nothing personal against any, you know, particular councillor.
Yeah.
I just feel as though, you know, the councillors in Burnley, the Labour councillors, they did the right thing. You know, they did the moral thing. They stepped down. They did not want to represent a political party that was complicit in genocide.
Yeah.
And that's the right choice to do. And it's not just the Muslim councillors. I believe there was a councillor who was a councillor for Brunshaw. What was her name? I don't want to get the name wrong. Christine, I believe her name may be. She stepped down for the same cause.
Yep.
So nobody is asking these councillors to step away from politics per se. You can remain in politics.
Yeah.
Just take a step away from political parties that are complicit in a genocide. You know, so that's the point.
Yeah, I agree, because that is something that I wanted to kind of push as a next topic or question, which was around some of the stuff that was coming back into the community. It was along the lines of, well, if the councillors resign, then who's going to represent you? But then some of the more familiar heads are thinking, actually, hang on a second, but you don't like resign and lose everything. Surely you can still be independent.
Of course.
Like, surely you represent a ward or a constituency, and what have you got to lose if you're truly representing your people? If that's your true concern, then just go independent. The people will get behind you. What have you got to lose? Or worryingly, is it a case of people maybe thinking of career goals as opposed to what the people want? I have to be objective.
You have to be objective, but I mean, some things are so obvious that, you know, they need to be said.
And I think in that situation, what do you think? So there's kind of word on the street is that there's a lot of disgruntled people that are starting to get together, and there may be some more potential independent candidates come to the next round of elections. And what do you think of that?
You know, I take my hat off to them. So if anyone is willing to stand as an independent, I take my hat off to them. You know, it gives an option.
Yeah.
It gives an option. Like, you know, whether or not it would fundamentally make a difference to the issue, the conflict in the Middle East, is highly unlikely. However, when all the councillors in Burnley who did resign got together and made that decision, it came on Sky News. There was it came on breaking news, and there was a change of tone in what Keir Starmer was saying. So he began to suggests that what he meant wasn't that, he started to basically backtrack a little bit. Yeah. So imagine 300 Muslim councillors we have, and imagine they had, all together resigned. It could have actually shaken the landscape, but, I believe Conservatives don't represent our community, and Labour now certainly don't represent our community, so we're left with very little option. And however, locally, an independent is still able to do the same job as a Tory or a Labour councillor. So why not?
Yeah. And then I think that is because we started the podcast and it was almost like, the glass is half empty, slightly pessimistic, because we're being realistic and saying, look, we don't have a massive amount of power. However, we did notice that Starmer did kind of get back off his perch a little bit, didn't he? He did kind of almost, as he started losing a few kind of spheres of influence, because there was quite a few other places that were affected, like down south as well, by this way.
Oxford,
yeah.
So.
And then he's kind of thinking, okay, I mean, realistically, I'm not going to mince my words. He doesn't really care that much. Deep down, maybe losing a few Muslim constituents might even secretly make them happy. However, with the general elections coming up next year, potentially, or whatever the date is going to be for them, he can't be, completely blasé about it either. He can't risk it, so he has to clamp down, and he has clamped down a little bit. He's kind of backtracking now because of some of the extremes that the Israelis have gone to. Now he's thinking, actually, I kind of co-signed this. Technically, he's not the leader, but he's thinking, well, actually, there's a large portion of the country that voted for me or my party, and I've co-signed this. So when people see that Starmer's taken almost like a softer view now, or he's climbing down, what do you say to those people that says, you can still stick with Labour now? Look, Starmer is climbing down now. What would you say to that?
Well, I believe in his own words, Starmer has described himself as a proud Zionist.
Wow.
So, I mean, you can condemn, it seems as though in American politics, in British politics, you can condemn every man and his dog. One thing you cannot do is condemn the colonial settler project of Israel, the illegal terrorist apartheid state of Israel, which is currently committing a genocide against a defenseless population, whereby it's heartbreaking. I mean, at this moment in time, there are mothers who are writing the names of their children on their limbs so they can be identified after their death. This is, I have never in my lifetime seen anything so brutal and heartbreaking. And these politicians who feel Israel has the right to defend itself, it doesn't. Israel doesn't have a right to defend itself. Bash, and I'll tell you why. Because an illegal occupier has no right to self-defense because they are illegally occupying.
Yeah, because
it's only the illegally occupied who have a right to defense. Whether it's the Republicans, the Democrats in the United States, whether it's the Conservatives, Labour in the UK, you can do anything, but you cannot condemn Israel. And it's unfortunate, it's sad, and it's about time we as a community got together. Because, 8 billion people can sit there and say, what difference can I make? But unity can make a difference. And, I'm happy with those brothers who have stood down, Labour candidates, councillors in Oxford. They still retain they still lead the council. In Burnley, Labour are still leading the town council. So it's not that they're taking themselves away from politics or not being able to serve the same constituents they have for so many years. They still have that option. It's just they have consciously decided to remain within these political parties that are complicit in the genocide of the Palestinian people.
So one of the things is, so when I mentioned about the glass being half full, now we start looking at the optimistic side of things. So we've got, in Burnley, we've seen that people are prepared to just put everything on the line and say, you know what, being associated with people who are supporting the spilling of blood, we don't want to do that. So we want to go independent. We might have some people in this area, maybe, this coming election season, that are going to go independent.
Maybe.
And even on a kind of bigger scale in England, there's already some quite experienced, Muslims who work in tech, who've started kind of collating the kind of information that helps and empower your voters. So I believe there's a website, it's called the Muslim Vote. I'll make it available in the description link for the video.
Thanks.
And that's actually a nice little project that some brothers done down south, where it provides you, the voter, with loads of information on, the candidates or the kind of people and their sphere of influence in terms of where their money's come from, whether they've been lobbied, whether they represent your interests. Because right now, to be honest, I think we've got to the point where Labour and Tory just don't represent Muslim interests as a whole.
They don't.
Unless where it gets really annoying, unless you're one of those people that are into that bloodry system, where you're only voting these people because some guy turned up to your house, he said, "Sanu card, they vote to the vote, give us all the votes from your house, and Flan the card, they vote to the vote." You don't need it. I'm not saying it, I'm objective, apparently. But it's, you know what, let's get straight into it. I think this bloodry system of voting, and this system where Flana Bunda on one side is a Kashmiri and Flana Bunda on one side is from this village, and I'm not going to vote for him and he's not going to vote for me. I think for the sake of all the dying kids out there, I think you lot need to just stop that, cut it out. We just don't care about you
anymore. Are we going uncensored now, Bash?
Go. I'm getting angry, but I'm supposed to be objective.
Let's be honest. The Conservatives, Labour, they are complicit in genocide. And if you are a member of the party, if you're paying a membership, if you're representing that party, you are complicit in that.
Simple.
It's that simple. It's not complicated. And the myth of change from within is a myth. And if anyone wants to ask, you can speak to Jeremy Corbyn. You can look at history. There is no way you are going to make a change from within the Labour Party and make a significant difference to the ongoing genocide. This is 75 years of brutality, of illegal occupation. I mean, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, there's documented cases. You can read all about it. Everything is in front of us. We know what's happening. And there's 15,000, on average, Israel is killing 126 children per day. Yeah. And we're approaching 100 days. This is insanity. And I think the people of good conscience would have already stepped down. And I now don't want to approach any candidate and say, look, whether they're Conservatives, whether they're Labour, and say, look, you know what, you should, because we have already spoken to these people and we've invited them to the masjids. Imams have given their views and their take on it. And they've decided, they've given their reasons, which, I mean, some of the reasoning behind it is illogical, wouldn't be the right word, but they have, for whatever reason, decided to remain within the parties. And I believe that they have done so because they feel that this bloody politics system that we have in is going to work. Nothing's going to change. After a few months, our community is just bathy, they're passionate. But after a while, everything will cool down and everything will be back to normal. And besides, I did his Nazra card and such a person's spouse visa. And because of that, but we are better than that, Bash. We are better than that. I hope we are better than that. For me, it's like a trauma. Like, we've been through cast lead, like I said, pillar of defense, protective edge. But this time it felt different. Yeah. And it is different. 30,000 dead, majority of whom are women and children. And I think the goal here is different too. I think the end goal for the colonial settler state is different. But as far as local councils are concerned, they wouldn't. I don't want to approach them and say, look, stand down or resign anymore, because we've already been through that, and they've decided with if they had if they wanted to by now, they would have. Yeah. If it takes pressure, if it takes forcing, trying to put extra pressure on them to do that, what good is that resignation? Because they're not doing it from from a moral perspective. They're doing it from a perspective of, we've got a lot of pressure. So these councillors, they believe they are still electable. They believe they will still win in the wards that they stand, and the people will still vote for them. So it's unfortunate that we have this system, the bloody political system. But I mean, it's not just a Muslim issue either. Yeah. I think the Palestinian issue is a huge issue. I mean, I can't comparatively think of any issue or cause which is greater at this moment in time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's very unfortunate that these local councillors believe that they still can be elected, and at the same time, our community does need to come out of this bloody politics system.
It needs to end.
It needs to end.
Because at the end of the day, you got to think, well, what am I actually voting for, as opposed to, oh, I've got to give this guy a vote because he came to my house, and it's about, you know, we've got two houses joined together, so that's 11, 12 votes between us sorted. You know, you can't take the voters for granted anymore. And since October 7th, I've just been reading and watching and seeing all the stuff coming through, and it's just like like a kettle that's boiling and it's slowly building up and steaming, and I'm just getting angrier and angrier because I see the futility of that. You feel like there's nothing you can do, whereas it's the small things when you think our own people, and I say our own people, I don't want to make this just a specific thing about some Pakistanis on a podcast, some Muslim talking on a podcast, but you do expect better from the people that represent a minority community. You'd expect them to be a bit more kind of understanding.
100%.
And you know what? I still, and I'm going to make this clear, I still hold out hope. Because I know the candidates individually, and they're top guys. They're really good people.
No, some of the candidates I've spoken to before. I've supported. So like individually they are good people, but I just can't fathom my mind. I can't comprehend what's actually going through their minds at this moment in time. Yeah. It's difficult to comprehend, but I know one thing for sure: they believe they're going to win. Otherwise, they wouldn't be standing.
Yeah, and it goes back to what I said earlier. Unfortunately, because of the systems and the processes that are in place in these local communities, they might just take it again. It's the reality. And it's an unfortunate reality, but like I said, it's going to take a few years. But this next generation, when I say next generation, I mean, I'm 38. But maybe the ones, like the next guys coming through, all paying attention to politics, they're going to be a lot more clued up, and they're going to be like, tell you where you stand.
You never know. It could happen this time. Maybe, sure. I mean, I'm sure me and you are not the only people who are passionate about the Palestinian cause, Bash.
Yeah.
This is a cause which is close to the hearts of many, many people in our community. And what's happening now is heart-wrenching, it's heartbreaking. When you see it, you don't have to be a Muslim. Being a Muslim, of course, I mean, this has something to do with religion. Otherwise, Benjamin Netanyahu would not be referring to Amalek, the Old Testament, where the Israelites are ordered to kill every man, woman, and child. These Israeli politicians are using genocidal language.
Yeah.
They're committing genocidal acts, using dummy, ammunition, unguided, committing massacres. The number of families that have been wiped from the registry in Gaza is unbelievable. It's if not now, then when, Bash? If not now, then when?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
That's the question.
But yeah, I think time-wise, wow, that was a passionate one. I think we're starting to go over time as well.
It'll be 5 minutes. How long has it been?
Oh, it's been a while. Right. I'm going to leave this bit in, yeah? So you're probably thinking, why have we stopped? Because we've got somebody in the back who's trying to say something. We're trying to figure out what she's trying to say. Go on.
Oh, so often they describe, Gaza as a open-air prison.
Oh, yeah.
A very densely populated. And we are aware of that. Half the population of Gaza are children. And, when they say Hamas was elected, in 2006? Yeah. The average age of the population in Gaza is, 18? So most of them didn't even have a say.
Yeah, they don't even have voting age.
Exactly. So the notion that they quite often use in discourse is that Gaza is an open-air prison. I think it's worse. I mean, when I was younger, I committed a crime. I was incarcerated for that. I was punished for that. Of course, now that was half my life ago. I feel I'm a rehabilitated individual. But in a prison, you get food, you get water. And I would describe Gaza like Norman Finkelstein did, which is a concentration camp. And these people have a right to resistance. And as far as October the 7th is concerned, I believe the killing of any innocent, of course, it should be condemned. Yeah, as the UN Secretary said, this wasn't done in a vacuum. There's history to this, and it's a moral quandary. How can you condemn a people who have been through, such brutality? If we were in that position, what would we do? They say it's an important question to ask, because there are members in the audience who might not be familiar with the, pre-October the 7th. The Western media outlets, try to start the clock on October the 7th as though everything started on October. It never. There's history to this illegal occupation, and all they simply need to do is look into the first Nakba, and they'll realize that close to 1 million Palestinians were, displaced, displaced from their homeland. I believe they have a right to return, and we can just hope for the best. What's happening at the moment is heartbreaking, and it doesn't seem to be changing. I know South Africa's brought genocide case to the ICJ, but
you know what? Credit to them. 100%. They're the only country that have done it.
And they've been through. They have their own history, so credit to them. And a lot of disappointment from other nations that we would expect to have been involved actively in helping this particular.
I think that is something that we can definitely cover in future, where we go into a bit more detail and kind of break down and explain to people, the kind of full history and full context of it. It will be good in future, inshallah, for sure. But while we wrap up now, is there anything else that you want to say? Anything, a particular message, or is there any? Because I know we did mention to a few people we're going to do this podcast. So, if there's anything that they want to discuss, we can wrap that up in the next few minutes.
They just really wanted to, I had a few people approach me and say they were very upset at the fact that, the local candidates they had supported for so many years had not stepped down. And of course, each their own. You can't force anyone to do anything. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone has a choice. And, all we can do is give our opinion and have a conversation. So that's it really, Bash.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's a passionate topic. We don't hate anyone.
No.
But we can dislike the choices that have been made and disagree with the choices that have been made.
Of course.
And I think that's healthy, because if everyone agreed, then for a start, we wouldn't even have separate parties, would we? But yeah, I mean, look, inshallah, onwards and upwards, maybe I should be a bit more optimistic. I think I'm being a bit pessimistic today, but
I think the most important thing is, at this moment in time, is the Palestinian people and the people who are enduring suffering on an unprecedented scale, unimaginable scale. And I'm no saint, as I've just explained. I'm a very normal individual, but what we can do is make dua and hope that these people, they deserve freedom. For 17 years, they haven't been able to decide, what comes in, what goes out. They haven't been able to live life as normal, and it's atrocious. And what's happening now is just, no matter how coherently you can speak or how eloquently you can come across, there's no words in my vocabulary that can describe the heinous, horrific actions of this.
It just pulls at your base instincts. You just want to. You just can't describe how you feel. But on that note, it's been one of those podcasts. I think it's been a while, and it's a very emotional topic. I think for both of us, it's just been building up. But there will be more, and again, I say this sincerely, but I welcome any of the local councillors to come on and just have a chat and just state your viewpoint. I know I'm supposed to be objective, and I will be objective. If you guys come on. But obviously, I like to think I represent some of the views of the people. And
I think it would be only fair as well, Bash, so they can come on and speak about the decisions they've made, why they've made them. And let's logically go through, have a constructive sort of debate, if that's what you want to call it, or a discussion to see what change do you think you can really make.
And I agree, because it could very well be that maybe there's something that, say, me and you are missing. So maybe there's something that they know, maybe there's something that's upcoming that they're working on that might have a big impact on this. You never know. You gotta have faith in them. So inshallah, we look forward to it. But on that note, Idnan, I want to say thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And inshallah, thanks to the viewers. Just the usual. Just stay tuned for some more. So inshallah, we'll see the viewers again soon, maybe.